This is the Coach's Corner podcast, hosted by Cody Rourke. Sports, debates, and the unfiltered truth. Alrighty, we are back. Day 2, Denver Broncos training camp is in the books for now. A little walkthrough session set for this afternoon, but day 2 off to a good start. Both quarterbacks today, Paxton Lynch, Trevor Siemian, looked a lot better today than they did yesterday. I'd say Paxton Lynch today probably stood out a little bit more. Today had some very great throws in the team period, and overall against the defense, he made the defensive guys work. So a lot of different little storylines going into day 2 of today. Obviously, yesterday, the Denver Broncos signed former Patriots running back Stevan Ridley in light of Devontae Booker's injury that he just had surgery on. He'll be out for 6 to 8 weeks. Could be back by the week 1 opener, but at this point, we have to wonder. We look at all the running backs on the Denver Broncos roster right now. Some guys will get cut. Some guys may be assigned to the practice squad. I know one thing is for sure. We talked about it yesterday. Jamal Charles will be eased in lightly to this offense. Even though he looks good, he's been fully cleared. They want to be cautious and a little bit more aware with easing Charles back into a full grind, especially when the Denver Broncos get into full pads. And that's one thing I want to say. I want to touch base on this a little bit. When we talk about training camp and practice, the first couple of days you're in shells. One day you'll be in helmet, but the first couple of days you'll be in shells, which is there's no full pads. You have shoulder pads and a helmet. That's pretty much it. There's not a lot of contact going on, but the next couple of days what happens is there is contact, and I think we'll see that full day on Sunday at Denver Broncos training camp. Obviously, contact will be a huge thing. If you're tuning in live here, I'm in the studio right now. You can leave me a little message here in the chat, and I'll read your response, your question, your analysis, wherever you have on air. Be sure to tweet me on Twitter as well. Right now, we are live in the DDP Yoga Performance Studio for radio broadcasting here on the Coach's Corner podcast. We are live talking day 2 of the Denver Broncos training camp. If you're tuning in on Spreaker, send me a chat. Twitter, if you're tuning in through there, tweet me. I'd love to field some questions and hear your analysis of what you've taken away. Maybe you were at training camp. If you were at training camp, send me what you thought today on the Denver Broncos. Obviously, the big storyline is covering the quarterback battle. But like I said today, both quarterbacks had a better day today than they did yesterday. Paxton Lynch shined a little bit. He showed a little bit of his athleticism that we saw at Memphis in terms of tucking the ball and running. He scored on a long run play today. And They competed pretty well. Trevor Siemian threw an interception to Bradley Roby in a team session on a pass that was intended for Emmanuel Sanders. But he finished pretty strong in the team session towards the end of camp by throwing a corner route to C.J. Anderson where he scored kind of right over the top of Corey Nelson. So it's good. Competition is good, and it looks like the Denver Broncos players out there are having fun. Garrett Bowles and Tyson Brilo rotated today at tackle against the ones, and Tyson Brilo struggled tremendously against guys like Von Miller and Shane Ray. Garrett Bowles had a little bit of his hands full as well when it came to Von Miller, but it's almost evident right now if you look at it and how he's played, Garrett Bowles is the guy that's going to be the tackle. Tyson Brilo has struggled. He hasn't found his niche yet in the NFL. He had a promising first year with the Denver Broncos, then got hurt and was out for the rest of the season, and then played hurt last year and didn't really see much time on the playing field. So Garrett Bowles, I'd imagine, would be the starter week 1 against the Los Angeles Chargers on Monday Night Football, ESPN, and I could honestly see Tyson Brilo being cut before it's all said and done. It just hasn't worked out for him in Denver, unfortunately. But my good guy, Stephen Kriz, he was over at Denver Broncos training camp this morning. Had a lot of great notes as well. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But, obviously, like we said at the top of the hour, Stevan Ridley signed to the Denver Broncos to bring in some competition and depth at running back. He looks good. He's looking for some confidence, especially after being let go by the Patriots a couple years ago, tore his ACL. It's a hard, rough business, the nature is of the NFL. But I want to talk about receivers for a little bit. Isaiah McKenzie, I think that guy's going to be a stud for the Denver Broncos. I think he might be, right now in my opinion, he might be the diamond in the rough for the Broncos offensively as a rookie. Jordan Taylor, good as always. I think Jordan Taylor is going to get a lot of run at wide receiver this year. A lot of people have eyes on Carlos Henderson, but the first 2 days of training camp, he struggled a little bit. He struggled. I think confidence is down right now. He's had some trouble with drops, and he fumbled the ball yesterday, so Tyke Tolbert's on him about that, but he's a rookie. He's got to learn. He's a speedy guy. And when he gets the ball, especially if he's in the return game, he's so quick. He's so explosive. So I think the Broncos will be a little patient with him. But he's got to improve. He definitely got to come back. He's got to limit drops. He's got to limit mistakes, because when you make mistakes in the NFL, especially during training camp, and you're trying to make the roster, there's no room for mistakes, and it could mean that you're gone. It could mean that you're gone as well. My buddy Ty Walden just told me Benny Fowler appears to be leading in third at the wide receiver race. My thoughts on that, I'd say that's about right. Last year, when we saw the same thing in training camp, Ty, Benny Fowler was having a very, very good camp. He got injured in a preseason game, and that really, in my opinion, I think that affected him. Because in camp he was making a lot of plays in this offense. Many people were raving about him last year. He made some plays on the field, but he didn't make the kind of plays that he made in 2015. Let's take it back to the divisional game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he caught that ball on 3rd and 15 to move the chains to help put them in position to kick, for C.J. Anderson's scoring touchdown to put them ahead. Last year, he had a drop against Kansas City, and then more hauntingly, when I look at it, Benny Fowler against the Tennessee Titans dropped what would have been a game winner from Trevor Siemian in a very tough battle. That game down there in Tennessee was a good battle, and I think the Titans are on the rise as well. But I'll save that topic for another day. But in my opinion, yeah, I think Benny Fowler right now, at the third spot for wide receiver, I think he's earned that. I think he may be more refreshed this year, healthy. If he can stay healthy, maybe he can be that solidified number 3 option for the Denver Broncos there at wide receiver. You got guys behind him like Cody Latimer, obviously Jordan Taylor fighting for a spot. I feel like this year more so for Cody Latimer, this is his year. He's got to fight for a roster spot. I feel like if he's not the guy that they've drafted him to be a wide receiver, he is a special teams player, which I could see that could be the only reason maybe he stays on the roster is by how he's performed on special teams. He's been very good at that on punt and obviously kickoff. I don't necessarily like him returning kicks on kickoff. That's one thing I don't really like seeing from him, but you never know. He could always improve at it, but from what I've seen in the past, I'm not too fond of him returning kicks. I'd like to get some of those young, speedy guys in there that are smart and won't field it in the back of the end zone and try to advance it out. So, wide receiver race, I'm very excited. There's a lot of depth there. I spoke on Predominantly Orange about who I think in training camp will be a standout player, a guy who's going to break out, and I wrote Jordan Taylor. He was the same guy that broke out last year. He earned some time on the field because of how he's played in the preseason. He's definitely earned a roster spot, in my opinion. I think in this offense, Jordan Taylor can thrive a little bit because teams are going to go back to covering Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, but then they're going to realize that the Broncos have some depth at wide receiver to where if they can get the tight end involved the right way, a third option at wide receiver can lessen the pressure for Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, and even the quarterbacks. When you have another threat in the passing game besides 2 guys, you can be a little more expansive on your offense. So I think that's something we're going to look at going forward. Cameron Parker told me, interesting guy to watch on the O-line will be Donald Stevenson. With Ty Sombrilo struggling, will he step in? And he says he's a little bit hesitant. I agree. I agree on this. We saw last year, we saw a lot from Donald Stevenson, and that wasn't necessarily flashy in my opinion for a tackle. He had penalties. He was just like Russell Okung. He had penalties and he struggled and he got beat a lot by these quick pass rushers out there on the edge, and Joey Bosa, Tamba Hali, Justin Houston. They gave these guys nightmares last year, and they were not quick enough, I feel like, to adapt to those kind of guys. I feel like with Garrett Bowles, his size and athleticism as a big man at 25 years old, being a rookie in the NFL, I think that bodes well for him more so than it does guys like Donald Stevenson. Because when I look at Donald Stevenson, I see a guy who who doesn't have too much flexibility in his hips, and his footwork is kind of suspect. But going into it, you never know with a guy. You never know what a guy's done in the offseason. I don't know too much about what Donald Stevenson has done with his offseason regimen to improve that. I encourage all my football players that I coach at high school to do yoga. It helps with hamstring flexibility, hip flexibility. When you're a little more mobile, you build some durability. And I think yoga is a great thing for that. But yeah, Cameron, I think that's exactly something I'm interested in looking at as well. Obviously, Donald Stevenson got another chance to play, and Russell Okung is now it's going to be hard transitioning from San Diego to Los Angeles. A Los Angeles Charger. I'm looking forward to Von Miller going up against him, Shane Ray going up against him twice a year. We could possibly see 3 to 4 sacks per game in those games for those guys. So it could be some stat padding going on there. I think of it this way. And with Tyson Brylow struggling, I think of it this way. When I look at last year against the Atlanta Falcons, he gave up, I think, 3 sacks, 2.5, something like that. That's the difference maker. That was the difference between Von Miller being the sack leader in the NFL and Vic Beasley Jr. Vic Beasley Jr. ate against the Denver Broncos tackles, the O-line. But, I think for Von Miller, it bodes well. And I think for Garrett Bowles going against Von Miller every single day and Shane Ray, guys like that, I feel like that benefits him more so because Von Miller has taken Garrett Bowles under his wing a little bit this year in the offseason, has kind of taught him. And I saw something today where, Garrett Bowles had a great block on Shane Ray and didn't give up a sack, and Von Miller ran up to him and chest bumped him. That guys are having fun competing. I love that. When you got a defensive guy like Von Miller, Von Miller is very energetic, and you got a new guy, a rookie in the NFL, and Garrett Bowles, who has a lot of expectations, a lot of pressure on him, being a first-round draft pick, and certainly a lot of people questioned it, but he's done all the right things, and he, right now as a rookie, looks the most impressive to me. Obviously, there's still some struggle with a little bit of footwork stuff, but there's an adjustment. There's a learning curve from going from the NCAA to the NFL. Guys are quicker. The kick step's a little different. You have to develop a kick step ideally. So I'm very excited about seeing what we can potentially get from Garrett Bowles going forward. I'm pretty excited about that. Tweet me some other hot takes that you guys are interested in that you want me to talk about, break down here live on air. We talked about quarterback. We talked about Stevan Ridley being signed yesterday. Running back depth, they got Bernard Pierce, C.J. Anderson, Jamal Charles, D'Angelo Henderson. They got some guys. Now Stevan Ridley, Juwan Thompson. There's some competition at tailback. When I look at it, you don't need to have all these tailbacks. I think you have camp bodies. You have some guys that will be on the practice squad. But I do see guys. I see the explosiveness that I see in D'Angelo Henderson, and it excites me a little bit because he is a guy that reminds me a lot, and I said it yesterday, like Kenyon Barner. He's a big back, and he's got an explosive quick step, especially after getting the ball. If he can hit a hole and explode out of there, he reminds me a lot of Kenyon Barner back when Kenyon was playing at Oregon. It doesn't hurt to have depth at tailback. I remember last year looking at it. The Denver Broncos were so desperate for depth at tailback, they had to go and sign Justin Forsett, former Raven, former guy that was connected with Gary Kubiak, Devontae Booker. Was a little banged up last year. C.J. Anderson obviously got hurt in that San Diego game, and he was out for the rest of the year. He's had a history of playing banged up. When you bring in guys, and I talked about it yesterday, you bring in guys, you have depth. You have a lot of depth at that position. You don't necessarily need to worry because you do have a plan. You do have options. And in the NFL, when you have options, it doesn't hurt. Cam Parker followed up with another aspect of Stevenson is he's cut-worthy. Sombrilo may have helped him back into rotation. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Donald Stevenson played very average at best last year. There were times where he had good games, but there were a lot of times he struggled. He, obviously holding penalties because guys were quicker, and you'd rather give up a penalty than a sack. But at the same time, on a sack, sometimes you might only give up 5 yards. Given a holding penalty, you give up 10. So, I do think that, Donald Stevenson is very cut-worthy. But with the way Tyson Brylo's playing right now, there is that option where, Stevenson may be back in the rotation. But Alan Barber, they just signed, traded for in Philadelphia. He has the ability to play tackle. So that's another option that the Broncos might have there. If they're solidified at guards with Menelik Watson, Ronald Leary, Max Garcia, Matt Paradise at center, obviously Garrett Bowles at tackle, you have an option there with Alan Barber at tackle. So I'm eager to see how that whole storyline plays out a little bit there. But certainly it's exciting, in my opinion. I feel like there are a lot of different options that the Broncos have this year that when we were analyzing training camp last year, I didn't feel like there was much diversity in terms of options and what players had and what coaches had to evaluate, especially in the Gary Kubiak offense. Gary Kubiak's a great coach, but at the same time, when I look at it, the offense didn't fit to the strength of the players. So some good days, though. Players had some good days this year. Carlos Henderson, like I said, rookie, got to get some confidence. But my man Steven Kriz over there, we work together at Predominantly Orange. We write together, was there today. He said both quarterbacks pretty much had a good day. Several mistakes there, but Paxton Lynch, he said if he had to grade it out, Paxton Lynch won the day, stood out more, made some more explosive plays, and was safer with the ball. So, you limit turnovers, you have a good chance. Obviously, you made the defense work. There was a skirmish today, a little skirmish between Demaryius Thomas and Chris Harris Jr., and I can attest to that as a defensive back. You want to be a little chippy. You want to get into the wide receiver set, and I think that Aqib Talib, Chris Harris Jr. are two of the best guys to do it, to get under your skin. But, from covering it this morning, watching it in the media saying really throughout that Tyson Brylo really struggled, and it's just hard for most people to fathom Tyson Brylo beating out Garrett Bowles to become the left tackle for the Denver Broncos Week 1 against the Chargers. I just don't see it. Cody Latimer had a pretty decent day. Paxton Lynch had a really nice throw to him for about a 40-yard completion. And they said that Paxton Lynch today, ideally, he had a pretty decent day, and he did well threading the ball between two defenders. Obviously, a lot of teams in the NFL will show that too high safety look, and oftentimes you don't know if it's a cover two man under, cover 3, it could be cover 4. As a quarterback, you got to identify, especially where the mic is, you have to identify what coverage they're in and where you can fit the ball. And that's one of the most important things about quarterback play in the National Football League is recognizing defenses. That's what makes Tom Brady great. That's what made Peyton Manning great. Drew Brees great as well. They recognize, they know defenses, they know how to pick up disguises, and oftentimes by reading the defense, by reading the front that the defensive line is in, where the linebackers are aligned, you can tell exactly what the coverage is, and it's hard because you got to make that decision quick. I honestly think that Tyson Brylo is holding on for his roster spot, but I don't think he is. I got into a little Twitter conversation today with a Chiefs fan. What I wrote was, I wrote Von Miller making the tackles work, Tyson Brylo struggling with Miller's quick first step, Tyson Brylo holding on for a roster spot. And some Chief fan responded to me saying, well, Von is one of the best in the league, even if he's a prick. So I didn't really get the relevance of that. So I pretty much said, I'm pretty sure you have the wrong guy in mind, but, Chiefs fans are very salty. They don't like Von Miller. I think it's because he gets to Alex Smith every year and makes Alex Smith look silly. But Shane Ray had a great day at camp as well. He was very quick, off the edge, explosive. His hand moves, he's gotten so much better with not only his first step, learning that from DeMarcus Ware, Von Miller, but he's so strong. His ability to push the tackle back, slap the hand down, either bull rush or spin, he's gotten very good at it. And that's one thing I'm very excited about. And we saw that at Von Miller's pass rusher camp that he held a little bit. So that's pretty good. But, one thing I do want to emphasize for all you listeners out there, if you do not have the ability to be at Denver Broncos training camp, you should definitely download the iHeartRadio app where you can listen to the Coach's Corner podcast live. You can listen to my show live. But also during training camp, go ahead and download the new Orange and Blue 760. With Tyler Columbus and Andy Lindahl, they have done a great job. It's nothing but Denver Broncos coverage. Go to iHeartRadio, type in Orange and Blue Radio 760, listen to it live. They keep you on air. They do a lot of great stuff. They went around, interviewed a lot of fans today there, got a lot of good stuff there, and they have very great coverage. I feel like unbiased coverage of the Denver Broncos, and they've done a very tremendous job. It's a great show. Obviously, probably the only thing Denver Broncos radio wise that I would ever listen to. I've gotten real tired of certain, radio, publications due to their need to broadcast a quarterback battle and to pick sides on who's going to be the quarterback, who should be the quarterback, cover the team, be unbiased, give honest feedback, and that's a thing that we're not seeing from a lot of sports radio stations nowadays. That's why it makes Blue and Orange and Blue Radio 760 the best out there right now. Go follow Tyler Palumbas, Andy Lindahl on Twitter. Great guys, great show. It's honestly one of the best shows I've heard in terms of coverage, unbiased coverage from the sport. So I'm very excited about it. Very, very excited about it. Obviously, most people are looking into a lot of different things with training camp. But like I said, you really can't look too much into it until the full pads are on. I think that's when the full evaluations really do begin, is when it's 11 on 11, full padded practices where there's contact. It allows people to be a little more aggressive compared to shells. Right now the Denver Broncos, in shells, when you have that emphasis, you want to ease your way into contact, the speed of the game, and you want to avoid injury. So I think they're doing a lot of great things. Coach Vance Joseph has taken a lot of positive steps in making sure that it's light, it's right, and it's not too much going on there. But, obviously a great day at Denver Broncos training camp, day 2. Obviously the last 2 days in Denver have been sunny, been nice. It's been an amazing thing to watch. But yeah, so when we come back from commercial break, we're going to talk about the Denver Broncos no-fly zone yesterday. We're going to talk about the media aspect of it, and what players had to say yesterday. So I'm very excited about that. We'll be back in just a moment for the Coach's Corner Podcast Live. So tweet me at Cody Rourke PO. We'll get you on air as soon as we get back from commercial break. See you in just a moment.
You've been listening to the Coach's Corner podcast on iHeartRadio and iTunes. For future episodes and archives of previous episodes of the show, go to CodyRourke18.com.
This is iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio makes you want to move.
When you have a great melody, a song can last forever.
Instantly connected.
I love it when the beat goes boom.
iHeartRadio is the way I get to you.
The biggest songs, the biggest artists,
All in one place.
iHeartRadio.
I'll see you there.
The 4 of us, we never missed a game. Then life, jobs, kids, new cities. It was time we got back together. A few minutes on NFL Ticket Exchange, and we were set. 4 100% authentic, real deal tickets to the Niners. From one fan to another. There's nothing better than this.
No place like home. Get your tickets today at NFL.com.
All right, welcome back to the Coach's Corner Podcast Live. We are here, and like I said, head on over to predominantlyorange.com to check out all the latest news and analysis from the great staff over at Predominantly Orange, putting out roundtable pieces, stat predictions, player analysis, and what we think, which player is going to stand out. We're going to do a lot of that stuff, especially as time approaches the regular season. We're very excited about that. Some good things in the works. The definitive plan right now is to have a Predominantly Orange podcast with all of us staff members over Predominantly Orange, featuring great debates, topics, discussions, analysis, news, and more. Follow on Twitter at Predom Orange. And like I said, go to the iTunes or app, the Google Play Store right now and download the Predominantly Orange app. Anytime there's an article that's posted, your phone gets instantly notified when an article, analysis, or any breaking news drops. Predominantly Orange has you covered. Unbiased coverage of the Denver Broncos. Great analysis, great staff. Very excited to be working there as well. But talking a little bit about it, if you head over to predominantlyorange.com right now, you can check out my latest article on the Denver Broncos on the no-fly zone, being focused on shutting down receivers and kind of stopping all the noise from the critics. The Denver Broncos DBs are very vocal as to their displeasure for, the media's disrespect for them. It's been a top passing defense in the National Football League for 2 years in a row, and they're going on 3. That's their goal, is to get it 3 years in a row to be the best team. Their secondary has been elite. The numbers don't lie. The stats don't lie. Chris Harris Jr., Aqib Talib, Bradley Roby, Darian Stewart, TJ Ward, Justin Simmons, and a little bit of Will Parks. Okay, these guys ball out. I've never seen a secondary as disciplined as this secondary. When we talk about great secondaries in the National Football League, obviously you think of the Seattle Seahawks, the Legion of Boom, and you got the no-fly zone, the Denver Broncos. Now, all these teams out there are trying to replicate and copy the mantra of the no-fly zone for their secondaries. Well, I want to tell these teams right now, the Jaguars, the New York Jets, until your team gets out of the bottom 8, the bottom 10 of the National Football League in pass defense, pass yards allowed, pass touchdowns allowed, you cannot ever claim to be a good secondary. And you cannot steal the no-fly zone. That's been the mantra. They've taken it. Stats don't lie. They've won a Super Bowl off of it. So compared to whatever accomplishments you guys have done, you guys haven't done anything compared to the Denver Broncos, Chris Harris Jr., Aqib Talib, TJ Ward, Darius Stewart, Bradley Roby, Justin Simmons. Nothing. Can't compare. Not a dang thing. And the top 2 pass secondaries, in my opinion, are between the Seattle Seahawks and the Denver Broncos. They're elite. They have great pass rushers, too, that help them shine even more. And that's what you want on a defense. You want guys like that who are going to make it easier for defensive backs to cover. When Jack Del Rio ran the Denver Broncos defense, there were times where he'd only rush 3 players, and the secondary, the DBs, had to cover, and the linebackers, had to cover for more than 5 seconds. Okay, the average football play lasts about 4.6 seconds. So when you have to cover more than that, it's unreal. Now, when I look at a good example of great pass coverage, a great pass rush, let's go back to the Green Bay Packers coming to Denver a couple years ago on Monday Night Football to play the Denver Broncos. Or it was Monday night or it was Sunday night, one of the other. It was a primetime game. Peyton Manning, the Broncos offense actually clicked on all cylinders. Ronnie Hillman and C.J. Anderson ran for 100 yards each, and the offense looked great heading into the matchup between the Indianapolis Colts. But back to my original point, there was a play where Aaron Rodgers had decent pass protection, but the pass rush was getting to him as well. And the coverage was so great, Aaron Rodgers couldn't throw the ball anywhere. There was a play where the Broncos literally covered the receivers for about 7 seconds, forced many errant throws. So when I look at all of it, it's crazy. It's crazy to see the evolution of how the NFL defenses have changed. The blueprint now in the NFL is you have to have a great defense in order to win games. To be able to contend for a Super Bowl, it all starts with defense because offenses can't always get the job done. We saw it in 2013. The Denver Broncos had the best offense in NFL history, and they went up against one of the best defenses in NFL history, and they lost because defense wins championships. You can't argue with it. So Bradley Roby, TJ Ward, Aqib Talib spoke to the media yesterday talking about, obviously the change from day one of training camp this year to what it was like last year. And the common theme was that amongst most Broncos players said that last year coming into training camp day one, there was a lackadaisical kind of theme, mood around Dove Valley that, they're coming off a Super Bowl win. They're good. No one can touch them. And that's where it led to them kind of being humbled a little bit. So the difference is that they recognize it. They're more hungry. They stay hungry, and the focus is a lot different. And guys like Derek Wolfe even attest to that. But Bradley Roby spoke a little bit to the media about what it was like playing alongside Chris Harris Jr. and Aqib Talib, and he often gets forgotten because of those two guys and how good they are. But Bradley Roby's a starting cornerback on 31 other teams in the National Football League. At me about it. But he really is. He's been such a tremendous player for Denver. And they got a lot of depth at cornerback now, which is great. But when he spoke about playing alongside Chris Harris and Aqib Talib, he spoke about it being great playing with those guys because they are all pros. They're the best of the best. To play with them, to compare myself to them, and to compete with them is really the best situation for me. And it's going to make him better because he wants to compete with those guys because they are the best. So there's a bar that those two guys set that Bradley Roby tries to match every single day. And he talked about a little bit, there's this disrespectful element amongst media about cornerbacks only being one or two guys, but he says that the Denver Broncos have a top 3 trio in the National Football League. He said, I think we could be a top 3. I don't know why they act like there are only 2 corners out there. I can see back in the day with 2 corners, but now there are 3 corners a lot of time in the National Football League. So they need to change that conversation. We're already the top trio, so there's no debate on that, and I really don't think there is a debate. Seattle used to be good with, Richard Sherman and Brandon Browner, but at the same time, they didn't have that third cornerback. They didn't have that guy. That really stood out. There was just 4. There was 2 corners, 2 safeties that were talked about. Aqib Talib entered it. He talked the most about feeling like the team was lackadaisical last year in their approach. He says the overall emphasis is that a lot of guys are hungry. That's what every team in the league is right now, except for the Super Bowl champions. Maybe the Super Bowl champions are hungry, but it's regular to us feeling hungry. Last year, that wasn't regular. We're getting back to where we want to be, and that's kind of scary for opposing teams. When Aqib Talib says we're getting back to where we want to be, that's at an elite level, okay? And that's very exciting. I'm very excited about that. T.J. Ward as well, he came out really talking to the media yesterday about feeling fresh this year. He feels like he's at, the peak of his career. He's in his prime, and he says he wouldn't be out there unless he felt like he could contribute and be a top safety in the National Football League. So that's always good to see here with, with the secondary and guys like that. But I want to know what you guys are looking forward to the most in training camp for the Denver Broncos going forward. What do you want to know? What are you looking for? What are your expectations for the team? Tweet me at Cody Rourke PO. Follow me, tweet me, message me on Facebook. I don't, whatever it is. I love interacting with all you guys. I've gotten nothing but great feedback from all of you guys, especially on the Twitter sphere, especially writing as well. But Broncos Emmanuel Sanders met with Troy Rank of the Denver Channel, and he talked about being excited for looking forward to the pads on Sunday. Emmanuel Sanders quoted saying, "It's where we separate boys from men," and that's absolutely true. Some guys are really good without pads, and some guys are absolutely terrible in pads. And Vance Joseph really talked about that last week before heading into training camp. It's all about seeing what guys can do when the pads come on, because this is what the game is played, and you're played on the field with pads, a helmet, and ruthless aggression. So when you don't have that, it's at the point where you have guys who are pretenders. That's why I'm a big disbeliever in 7-on-7, because it is a glorified offensive scheme that really doesn't make anybody better. It's maybe to work on chemistry, timing on routes, and things like that, but other than that, it's not a true telling sign of what can happen in the National Football League. The game on Sundays, 11-on-11, full pads, full stadium, loud stadiums, might I add. It's unbelievable. It's a different element. But yeah, when I look at it, you really have to be a difference maker. A lot of times people look at these huge guys, these big, muscular, buff guys that play in the National Football League, and they think, oh, they're really good. A lot of times there are a lot of people that can pound out maybe 1,500 pounds in the weight room altogether on all their core lifts, or even more than that, and they cannot do anything on the football field. That's where technique and coaching comes big. It don't matter how strong you are. If you are a technician and you do your job and you have a great understanding on the knowledge of the game and the position that you play, that separates you from a lot of people who are just strong. There's weight room strong, and then there's football strong, where you can actually get hands on people and drive them into the dirt. That's what I love to see. That's what you guys love to see. That's why we watch on Sundays. We want to see a gladiator-style element within the confines of a game in a way that's safe. And a lot of people are really questioning the NFL right now due to this CTE research report that just dropped, that just released, of the 111 NFL players that that were dead, that died of old age or died young, and they tested their brains, and 110 out of 111 came back positive with CTE, which is trauma from the brain from repeated blows over the years. But many people are now trying to discredit the NFL. Many people now are trying to get it to where the NFL is not what it is now, where it's not 11-on-11, where it's not full pads, where it's not contact. And guys like Michael Vick right now with this professional flag football league, that's exactly the model that is created that is going to destroy the NFL, because of all these people being scared of, oh, we have head trauma. Guys don't play football and don't understand that, I could potentially lose my life over this. It's a physical game. I could take shots to the head. I could get hit to a point where I fracture my leg and never be able to walk properly again. There are risks that guys know when they sign an NFL contract. They know there is the risk. But you have some guys that, they do think about it, and they retire because, I don't want to sustain this anymore. Many guys are now donating their brain to, to research, when they die. I think that's a great idea, but I think the sample size, you need to also study the brains of people who played in the league that are still alive when they, before they die. What kind of symptoms do they possess? What kind of psychological symptoms do they have currently? Do they have depression? Do they have constant migraines, headaches every single day? What kind of behavior changes? Do they have a history of substance use or abuse? That's a big thing that leads to also deterioration of the brain is substance abuse. And people want to discredit saying that it's only because guys get hit in the head in the NFL. That contributes to a lot of head trauma, but so does substance abuse. And people need to acknowledge that and stop being so one-sided in the media with, oh, you play football, you get hit, you're going to get CTE. I've had 6 concussions, okay? I've known the risks of playing football ever since I started playing. And when I got my first concussion, I looked forward to being done with this so I can go back to playing. It didn't scare me into not playing. My parents weren't saying, oh, you had a concussion, I don't want you to play anymore. I've had 6 concussions, and I've willingly gone back out there because I love the game of football. I love the camaraderie, the brotherhood, a lot of that different stuff that most people don't understand. Most people these days look at football as an individual sport. It's about, okay, it's about fantasy football. It's about, get me these stats in my fantasy team so I can win money. No, football is a team game. And you sign up for it knowing exactly what you're going to get. There's a chance you can get hurt. There's a chance you can die. There's a chance you may never be able to play again after an injury. We all sign up knowing that. I've had 6 concussions. I willingly went back. I didn't care because I love this game so much. Yeah, to this day, you know what? I still do suffer some side effects. I suffer migraines constantly. I probably get 2 to 3 migraines every other day. A lot of it has to do with that concussion stuff. There's a lot of stuff from when the time I had my concussions. I don't remember days before that. But you know what? It's to a point right now, I'm 23 years old. I'm not really affected by it how it used to be. Now, when I had a really bad concussion that lasted 6 months, I questioned some things. I questioned, will I ever be able to play again? It wasn't the thought that, do I ever want to play again? No, it's like, no, will I physically be able to ever play again? I want to play. I love the game. And then I ended my career. I tore my ACL, and that was too hard for me to come back from. Because not only was it such a physical journey that sent me into a dark place of depression, but it was also a very mental thing, and I tried coming back out there. I tried going back out and playing the game again. Went to workouts, went to all these organized team activities, worked on cutting and things like that. And even though my knee is healthy, it's fine. Mentally, all I could think about was don't cut too wide, don't plant too hard. I was worried about tearing my ACL, again. And that's what led me to retire. I hung up the cleats. I had 3 championships. I was one of the top cornerbacks in the league. I was part of a great organization, a franchise. I miss it. That's why I coach it to this day. And I tell my high school football players, I tell them, you never know what you're going to get with football. All you have guaranteed is the game that you're playing. You have this one day. If you have one game, that's all you're guaranteed because you never know what can happen going forward. Your one snap can change it all. One snap can change your life for the rest of your life. So when I look at all these things and all these people trying to destroy football at the high school level, the collegiate level, and the professional level because the game's not safe, you have the same exact odds of getting a concussion or dying by walking next to a scaffold or a construction area in New York City, a skyscraper where someone drops something. You can get hit by anything. You can get hit by a bird flying and falling out of the sky and hitting you. There's risks in everything that you do. You can get hit by a car walking on the sidewalk. Okay? Don't discredit the game of the National Football League because it's an easy cop-out. It's easy to look at these research studies, the statistics about head trauma, and when concussion came out, it was very controversial. You look at a guy like Hamza Abdullah, who played in the National Football League for many years. He won't even watch football now. And he's on social media going on a tangent about he won't watch it. He won't support the National Football League because it's a deadly game and people can lose their lives. You know what? That's fine. That's fine. The NFL is not going to hurt over you not watching the game. I will watch the game. I will advocate. I will coach the game. I will play the game in any facet that I can because football does so much beyond the X's and O's. It teaches you about responsibility. Coaches holding you accountable. It teaches young kids that adults are meant to be hard on you because they're teaching you a lesson. There's a difference between being a prick and being a dick. If you're hard on somebody, if you're hard on a kid, you get on them about not going to class, not doing the right things on the weekends, on their off time. They're doing stuff that is misconducting of what a team standard is or something in the community. That's important. That's important to teach these kids to be accountable, to be responsible. And when you hold them accountable and you teach them responsibility by giving them that tough love, years down the road when they're adults, they're going to thank you. They may not see it now, but they will. And in the National Football League, it's the same way. There is a lesson in everything that happens with these guys who are grown men that have been playing in the National Football League 10 plus years. There's still a learning curve. There's still a lesson that they're learning every single day as a football player. So, I'm going to end it on that note. But because it fires me up, I'm very passionate about it. I'm very passionate about football. I'm very passionate about the future of the game. Because it is so important. And it's more than just X's and O's. It teaches you a lot of things. And if you pay attention to the details of football, you will come away with a lot of lessons learned. I encourage you to read books written by coaches, by Tony Dungy, by all these professional coaches, John Gruden. Trust me. Go read it. Your perspective will change entirely. And I'm eager to hear it. We'll have episode 3 tomorrow following day 3 Denver Broncos training camp. If you want to be on the show, hit me up on Twitter at CodyWorkPO. I'll get you on the air live. We'll talk football. You give your analysis. Don't matter if you're a Broncos fan, Patriots fan, whatever. If you want to be on air, you want to talk, you want to have a little debate, you want to have a little discussion, analysis about football, Broncos, NFL, anything like that, reach out to me. Send me a message on Twitter or follow me and tweet me at CodyWorkPO, and I'd love to have you on the air. This is Cody Work with the Coach's Corner podcast, live, day 2, Denver Broncos training camp in the books. I love football. I love you. I love life. See you tomorrow.